Okay, we are now live. Hello, everyone. My name is Michaela Wren. I am a conservation specialist with Wake County Soil and Water Conservation District. This is our fourth Lunch and Learn talk on urban and suburban stormwater issues. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Today's lecture is titled Help Water Quality Solutions in Raleigh. Our speaker for today is Justin Harcum from the City of Raleigh. He will be talking about the Raleigh Rainwater Rewards program. If you have any questions or comments during the presentation, please type them in the comment or chat box, whether you're viewing from YouTube or Facebook, and they will be addressed after the presentation during Q&A. With that, I will go ahead and hand it over to Justin.
Thanks, Michaela, for that introduction, and I appreciate the opportunity to discuss the Raleigh Rainwater Rewards program today. This program is a mechanism to incentivize property owners into considering GSI in stormwater quality projects at time of redevelopment. So this program applies to both public and private property, commercial, institutional, or residential properties. And it is really something that is unique to the Southeast region of the US. And there's really only a few similar type programs nationwide. And so I'm going to cover a lot of ground today. Wanted to show how I broke the presentation into pretty much 5 parts, with most of the content being in that first section. So I'm going to walk through kind of our Rainwater Rewards policy, the process that accompanies the program, and then show how a project goes from inception to completion. Then going to break into the history of the program and show how policy revisions enhance the program over time. And then we'll touch on our rebranding that took place several years ago, and then past and current outreach efforts and initiatives, and where we're kind of going in the future. So let's go ahead and dive into what is Raleigh Rainwater Rewards. I guess for starters, I always tell folks we're a water quality program and a reimbursement program. At the end of the day, we're primarily a funding mechanism. But along that process or throughout that process, we also provide outreach, extension efforts, through the whole life of that project and the development of that project. So it all started back in 2009 when the policy was approved. It was called the City of Raleigh Stormwater Quality Cost Share Program. And once again, why do we have this program? It's to incentivize, urban stormwater quality retrofit projects. Some of the benefits here, the city obviously gets the water quality benefit, through pollutant removal that these features achieve. And there's a lot of additional and ancillary benefits as well. There's a lot of education, public engagement. These features are usually aesthetically pleasing, so they're enhancements in that regard. And a lot of them are usable, something like a cistern. And then lastly, and really probably what generates a lot of calls, is they may mitigate a larger nuisance drainage concern. Once again, our goal here, though, is to incentivize stormwater quality projects, not mandating. So, we're not mandating projects. These are not for new development where stormwater management is required. So it's a voluntary project. Folks come to the program and do above and beyond what is required on their property, or where nothing's required on their property. And so real quick, just to kind of take a step back here, what are the drivers and the components that make the Raleigh Rainwater Rewards program possible? There's a lot of drivers, mostly regulatory. The City of Raleigh has an MS4 NPDES permit, and in North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality requirements. And so we're required to manage our infrastructure and resources in a way that best serves the community. So as a result, we have a lot of initiatives and programs that all fit under the stormwater management division with the City of Raleigh. So, this ranges everything from project management, drainage assistance, development, review, and inspection, and, obviously the Rainwater Rewards. And so to help fund a lot of this, we have a tiered stormwater fee. And that fee amount is based on the amount of impervious surface on the property. And there are different rates based on property type, commercial and residential. There is a difference in rate there. But the main takeaway here is that the Raleigh Rainwater Rewards program is really around or less than 1% of the total revenue generated from this stormwater fee annually. So it's a very small portion of what we call our CIP budget, our capital and improvement project budget. And it's really our lowest funded initiative, but we do get a lot of benefit out of that. So I just wanted to kind of, the main takeaway here is to show other communities that this type of program is possible and can be a very small proportion of the annual budget. And this is a quick breakdown of kind of where this program lives. We have a lot, 20 plus departments in the city of Raleigh. Department of Engineering Services is where Stormwater Management Division lives. And if you go on down through programs, there is a water quality section. This water quality section deals with everything from illicit discharge to pollution prevention, good housekeeping, stream monitoring, volunteer outreach efforts, and obviously rainwater rewards. So there's 4 main eligibility criteria to look at when someone is interested in pursuing a project through Raleigh Rainwater Rewards. The first is the applicant must be paying and be current of the stormwater fee, and that is included on a resident's water and sewer bill. So if anyone wants to confirm that they actually pay that stormwater fee and you live in the city of Raleigh, pull out that bill and you'll see there's that stormwater fee included and itemized on that. There are some surrounding communities in what we call donut holes, these small white areas on this map here, that they're not eligible even though they may get water and sewer from the city of Raleigh. Those areas are not considered city of Raleigh and they do not pay the stormwater fee, therefore they're not eligible. Second main point, which I touched on earlier, is that the project has to be voluntary. It has to be above and beyond current stormwater regs. No project through this program can be used to meet stormwater requirements, including impervious surface limitations or any sort of pollutant reduction requirements for new development. So it's got to be above and beyond. Third, funds have to be available. The city has to have funds available to assist with these projects. And then lastly, the project has to be, quote, reasonable and practical. And that's language from the policy. And that language gives the approval authority latitude to not approve some projects that may be too innovative or too costly or don't fall in line with maybe industry standards for water quality projects. So moving on from the eligibility, kind of show our project distribution map. And this is showing, I'd say maybe 10 projects ago. So it's not a current map. If you're interested in looking at the current distribution, please visit our website, Raleigh Rainwater Rewards. But you'll see this pretty much spread out throughout the whole city. There's not a whole lot up in Briar Creek. That's the one area we have yet to complete a project in. We have approved, I want to say 130 some projects, and I know it's on an upcoming slide, and we already have 3 that are pending review and approval over the next month and a half. Once again, the policy was established in 2009, and it's been revised 3 different times, and we'll go into detail about what occurred during those revisions. And let's go ahead and next slide. And I wanted to just show the expansion of the program over the years using this table. So it just shows the trend and the trajectory of the last several years. For the first 6 years, we had 20 projects, and in last year we had 34 in last year alone. So you can see that the amount of money being spent or encumbered each year has grown, but it's pretty much leveled out at a comfortable level, right around $250,000 a year. Another takeaway here is that on average, staff can pretty much handle and funding can handle between 25 and 30 projects a year without any additional requests for funding. So that's the trajectory on. We're really growing as a program, and word is getting out throughout the community. So here's our total project breakdown. You can see that there's a lot of interest in your rain gardens and your cisterns. Impervious surface removal is a relatively new project type. And then you have some of your higher cost projects that we've supported a few examples, but not nearly as many. And I want to say that cisterns and rain gardens have historically been the most popular project types for the program. And it's the reason being is that they fit well on residential properties. And where there is a limiting factor for a larger project or a higher cost project, and even in some cases, for a single family home site, the limiting factor may be the amount of impervious surface being treated. So that, all of that is tied into whether or not the project is cost effective. And bioretention cisterns, they're low cost projects. They require small footprints. They fit well on single family home sites. Some of your other project types, obviously, are that's not the case. And we'll go into some examples of these as we move on. And once again, here's that that first project type, most popular over the last several years, rain garden, bioretention. We use those terms interchangeably. We typically will call a rain garden, we'll use that term for your smaller applications, and then a bioretention for your larger, maybe larger multi-unit residential or commercial properties. Same principles involved. We still lean pretty heavily on NCDEQ's minimum design criteria for these features. So even a rain garden will have a profile, and in some cases, even an under drain. But this right here is a rain garden at a church in Southeast Raleigh. And then here's two more examples. These two examples really show the full range or the flexibility of the program. Here we can support a small backyard rain garden with a under drain, which you can see the access port or there towards the top of your photo. But you also can see this huge bioretention being installed at a church in North Raleigh, and that treats right around 2 acres of runoff. So the program has the ability to support anything either into this spectrum and everything in between. And then here's the final example here. This is a Gateway Plaza at Crabtree Boulevard and Capitol Boulevard. They redeveloped this entire shopping center and installed these features above and beyond what was required out there. And also want to take away here is, the different planting types. You can have, native plantings. In this case, it's just grasses. And so it just depends on the aesthetic goals. And in this case, it might be visibility necessity for the project and the location. Another project type that we have not supported yet would be a constructed wetland. And really, reason being is that these require pretty large drainage areas to install these big footprints. So they're probably going to be limited to your bigger property types. And we have not had one come in. There has been interest over the years on a couple properties, but no one's moved forward yet with the constructed wetlands. So stay tuned. Hopefully next time I present this, maybe we'll have something to show here. Permeable paver projects, we've supported 9 over the last 11 years. A handful of those on residential properties. It's a really tough fit on residential properties due to the high cost and the small amount of pollutant removal. You're dealing with a small footprint really for a high cost. You're not treating a whole lot, and there's a lot of design and site considerations which make this project a difficult one for the program to support. However, we have approved or supported several, and also most of them are this traditional style paver. And we most recently supported a eco-raster system, which is which I think I have a photo. This is at Raleigh Union Station of your traditional style. And then the eco-raster I was describing is here. See, it's like a matrix, hard matrix with pea gravel filled in. And all of these systems have a clean wash stone profile underneath that actually serves as holding capacity for the rain event and the runoff directed to it. So in this case, if you'll notice, a lot of these downspouts are directed to the system from the roof. And so these are going to the system beyond what just falls from the sky onto it. All right, and cisterns being our second most popular project type will fit on almost any property and has really been one of the real drivers of the program. We support everything from a simple DIY project all the way up to your commercial installs. You can see here that we do support a small above ground cistern, located on a residential property, but we also support underground cisterns as well. All of our cisterns do require a passive drawdown, which will allow the cistern to draw down in between rain events and always have capacity for that next rain event. And that's really what makes it that water quality device. We don't want to assist with installing a vessel or a cistern and having it remain full for the duration of the year. So that passive drawdown is a key component of any project we support. Moving on to a couple more examples. Here is a cistern that is used by Leaf and Limb Tree Service Company off Now Road. It's a 2,000 gallon cistern, and they use this to fill up their tree service trucks. And they're 400 to 500 gallon trucks. They can fill up their fleet of 4 vehicles with a full cistern and don't have to pull water. Well, you don't have to use city water for that. Interesting application here and a really popular project. And as I mentioned, we do support a few underground cisterns. These can be cost prohibitive, and we have to ensure that we're capturing enough runoff to make these justifiable to support. So we have supported a few of these in the past as well. Green roofs. We have only supported 4 green roofs, and these are difficult projects to support. This is an example on a residential property. They do not offer the same pollutant removal as some of the other project types we described. And because of the high cost, coupled with the high cost, they sometimes do not compare well to some of the other project types. So we have supported 4 throughout the history of the program, and still remain on the menu, I guess is the way of putting it, moving forward. This is our largest example, and I believe it's still the largest green roof in Raleigh. It's this whole concourse on kind of the north side of this picture, starting with the flagpoles all the way down to the left of the photo. Raleigh Rainwater Rewards supported this green roof back in 2017. Along with several other projects on the property. This one is really remarkable, and it changes through the seasons. And we just recently had a sign installed out on the property so that folks realize that they're looking at a green roof when they're up on this viewing deck. So turned out well. The other city-owned green roof that this program has supported is actually out at Buffalo Road Aquatic Center. It's on the roof there. And this is a photo during the install there. And that has been there almost, going on almost 10 years since install, and still functioning. And also wanted to touch on this. It is, like I was saying earlier, it is a relatively new project type. We call it project type. It's as simple as it sounds. You remove impervious surface. It involves demoing the old concrete and tilling up those underlying soils, and then establishing vegetation. The program will support everything from a small patio removal all the way up to parking lot removal. And this is a picture that, once again, out at Crabtree Boulevard and Capitol Boulevard, Gateway Plaza. They removed right at 0.8 acres of parking lot, and that we supported the removal of those areas. They obviously paved back everything else, but the area that they removed, they were able to recoup or have reimbursement for the cost just for the area removed permanently. And so they have planters there now in vegetated areas, landscaped areas. All right, well, that's a rundown of the project types we support. The next slide really gets into the 8 steps of the program, kind of from initial interest all the way through to project completion. It's a very high level handout that we give a lot of folks, but like every government program, there's a process, and this is the path the project takes from start to finish. It usually starts with the petitioner contacting city staff. And sometimes we'll reach out proactively, but 9 times out of 10, an applicant will hear about the program through some of our outreach efforts or from a neighbor and friend and reach out. The city staff will then schedule a site visit with the applicant or with the interested party, and they'll go and visit their property and discuss site limitations, project limitations, design limitations on what they want to do or what their property, what would work on their property. Once they figure out scope and estimate, they put together or they work with a contractor to develop scope and cost estimate, and then they put together an application, submit it back to city staff. We will package that and then present it to the approval authority. This interaction with city staff is just great. It humanizes the program. There's a lot of education outreach that occurs, in someone's backyard when you're looking at how water behaves, where it goes. I don't know how many times I've been in someone's backyard and we were unsure even where their downspouts daylight. And once we did, we ended up at the end of the day having a project out on the property. So a lot of education. And also this interaction also flushes out a lot of kind of outlandish or unsupportable projects that really aren't water quality projects. But once presented and approved, a legal agreement is drafted up by city staff between the legal agreements between the city and the applicant, and that'll define deliverables. Now, the project can be installed, a final site visit occurs, and then all invoices are submitted to the city, and then we will reimburse up to the either 75 or 90% reimbursable amount based on location, which we'll get into in a second. But here's the quick rundown of the process. Like I said, this whole thing starts with contacting city staff. And so here is a quick map grab I did of consults since 2018. So we've had 550 plus site visits and consult requests just since 2018. And they span every area of the whole city. It's a pretty impressive map. The amount of reach that we're getting, showing the kind of reach that we're getting. And really back to this, I wanted to, kind of reiterate what is in that legal agreement. When I say defines deliverables, it's going to have that project description for the applicant, what you're installing or what they're installing and their maintenance term. There is a maintenance term that is required. It's either 5 or 10 years, which I'll get into in a few slides. And then it also defines the amount of money that the city is willing to reimburse for the project. So all of that's spelled out in the legal agreement, and we're able to refer back to this agreement for the full life of not only the project installation, but of the full maintenance period. So kind of the big takeaway from this whole process, the back and forth with staff and the applicant is, the regular involvement with city staff is ongoing from step 1 all the way through the maintenance period, which is 5 to 10 years. Secondly, the property owner and the contractor or designers are really who design the project. We might help them make decisions, give them guidance, but it's really their project. We're just going to make sure that it meets our requirements and our goals. Back to that legal agreement, that really serves to protect the owner, give them the peace of mind to move forward, knowing that the city will reimburse up to a certain amount, and it protects the city by defining what is actually being installed and maintained throughout the life of the project. That's probably enough on process there. So I mentioned maintenance requirements. So now that a project's done, what does that maintenance look like? Like I said, it's or as my manager had said, everybody wants to help plant the garden, but nobody wants to weed it. And so that's definitely been a challenge with Rainwater Rewards projects, but also for all GSI projects, probably since they started installing them. So we have probably a better track record than most because of that legal agreement we talked about. Generally speaking, it's a pretty straightforward requirement. Anything where we reimbursed, $5,000 or less, it's only a 5-year maintenance period, and there is an annual report that needs to be submitted. It can be completed by the property owner or homeowner, and it just includes some photos. Pretty general, pretty easy box to check. Staff will make site visit if requested or if needed, or if there's not a response. If the city reimburses over $5,000, then it's a 10-year maintenance period with the same requirements. And then for your larger projects, more costly projects, if it's greater than 30,000, it requires a land use restriction, and that's recorded the plat map with covenants and restrictions. That's recorded prior to reimbursement. And then if it's over $100,000, it actually involves a licensed professional seal, both on the design plans, but also at time of each annual inspection. So there is a tiered approach for maintenance that increases with more responsibilities for the applicant as the price of reimbursement increases, or the amount of reimbursement increases. So kind of going back to that second tier, most projects are going to be under the $30,000 reimbursement threshold. So most are just going to be doing the annual report with the photos. However, those projects over 30 will have, this is an example of a exhibit, a plat map exhibit showing the areas that certain activities can occur in to protect the stormwater device. And then we have language to support that. This will be recorded with a note on it saying that this requirement will sunset at the end of 10 years. So it is a temporary requirement, but it does involve a little bit more legwork, and it protects the city's investment even through the change of ownership or even points of contact at the facility. So moving on to. So that's moving on to the history of the program. So pretty much how we went from good, better to best, really. We are the program we are today because of some of the revisions that occurred over the last 10 years. And I'll go into greater detail on those. So back in 2012 was our first revision to the policy. It was very small. Rainwater Rewards program was initially started along with the sister program called the Drainage Assistance Program. Those projects are generally more expensive. They're larger structural repairs, bigger in nature, sometimes supporting whole neighborhoods. And so they made a change to both policies, the Drainage Assistance Program and Raleigh Rainwater Rewards, and allow petitioners to pay the city in installments for project costs. And it does require a lien to be placed on the property. And as far as I'm aware, this has never been utilized by anyone for a water quality project, but it is still in the policy. And that was one of the first changes, not very consequential. Moving to 2015, though, there were some substantial changes. By this point in the history of the program, it had enough projects and context to really and it hit enough obstacles, to be honest with you, to present meaningful changes to the policy. And so, the big changes that came out of this revision, this revision period, were that 5 water quality target areas with a 90% cost share were created. And it eliminated some residual incentives where there was a 50% for a shorter maintenance term. Instead, they just said 90% reimbursement in those 5 target areas, and then 75% for the rest of the city. So simplify that and increase that reimbursement incentive. Let's see, there was also some significant text changes. It goes back to, or it used to say lowest cost alternative, and the approval authority really wrestled with the meaning of this. And so that was changed to acceptable cost. And that term is still used today, and that's more appropriate because it's what's acceptable by the approval authority. And they have and will utilize that to determine which projects should or should not be supported. And then lastly, these changes called out 2 project types for changes. And probably the most impactful was the change for permeable paver projects. So City Council did not want to be in the business of replacing every driveway in the city of Raleigh at 75 or 90% cost, but they did want to support green stormwater infrastructure. So they went about an approach to support just the elements of the project that make a driveway permeable. So for permeable paver projects only, they no longer reimburse the cost to remove the existing driveway, and they don't cover the cost of what it would cost to install a traditional driveway in that footprint. The cost reimbursement is just for what is above and beyond. So we have settled on a formula for that, where we take a general cost of a traditional driveway and then subtract that from the cost of a permeable paver driveway. And that difference is what then can be taken to the program for reimbursement. It also added some additional language to address green roofs, and pretty much states that the program will not pay for removing an existing roof or to reinforce existing structure to support a green roof. These costs would be pretty exorbitant, and the program did not want those to be considered eligible. And just probably, like I said, the most impactful thing that came away were the 5 target areas here that are eligible for 90% reimbursement. You have your Perry Creek and Pigeon House Branch. These are impaired watersheds identified by North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. You also see Swift Creek and Falls Lake watersheds, which there's a small amount of each in the city of Raleigh. These are both water supply watersheds, and so they're going to be high priority. And then we also utilized a downtown overlay district that kind of overlaps Pigeon House Branch, and where everything's pretty much built out. It's all impervious surface. So those previously 4 areas, along with this downtown overlay district, move forward with the 90% reimbursement areas. The rest of the city, shown in green here, is eligible for 75%. That takes us through the 2015 changes, which were significant. And then 2018, by this point, the program has really been expanding. It's generating a lot more interest, and really efficiency of process is really where the improvement was needed. And these changes were a game changer for the program. It broadened what could be applied for. So, one instance is that it allows for completed projects to be considered as long as they haven't been completed beyond a year. So they have to be completed within a year of application. And that was important because construction timelines do not always correspond with the stormwater management divisions and approval authorities timelines. So they're still evaluated using the same criteria, but it did open that up as a possibility for applicants. It also added a lot of the maintenance requirements that I mentioned earlier, with the greater than $100,000 city cost contribution, with the licensed professional sign off and seal. And I would say most importantly from these changes, they approved this approval matrix, which was adopted, and it pretty much delegated authority to staff for a lot of our lower cost projects. So you'll see that city staff is the approval authority for anything up to $5,000. And that really took a lot of burden off city council and our stormwater management advisory commission, where previously everything would have to go all the way up to city council. And when we were starting to look at projects 25 a year, that's a lot of work, especially for these low cost projects. So, this matrix was approved, and it really delegated authority down so that city staff had approval of some tiered projects. The Stormwater Management Advisory Commission, or SMAC, would have approval for a big portion of projects, and then only your largest projects would actually be reviewed by city council. They implemented 3 minimum construction estimates to be used as a basis for reimbursement, and then extended out the maintenance terms, like I've already mentioned, the 10 years for anything over $5,000. All right, and so that's the history of revisions, and it really has not only improved the program, but has made it a lot more efficient, where we were probably not in a place, the policy didn't allow us to be in a place to process 25 to 30 projects a year when we started out. And now that is definitely the case thanks to these changes. So I'll move into kind of our rebranding process and what's occurring kind of now, or at this period, 2018, after we've made these policy revisions. We're floating right around 17, 18. So things are starting to pick up. And we had real limited participation, as mentioned before, prior to this time. So if you just look, we're sitting right here, fiscal year 17 and fiscal year 18, and something obviously changes over those years. And so we had staff come in that were really energized about the program, and they wanted to develop some goals. They wanted to increase the number of participants. They wanted to maximize limited market resources. And they wanted to increase the type of property or diversify the type of property that these projects are being used on. So, instead of just single family home sites, we wanted to expand the program to get some commercial or some institutional properties involved. And then, along the same time, along comes the UNC School of Government Environmental Finance Center. And they received a grant to study stormwater management incentive programs. Well, we were both geographically and in a position as a program to be very willing and easy partners for their studies. So we teamed up with the UNC School of Government, and they, after studying and surveying multiple programs throughout the nation, they were able to generate a pretty good report with a lot of great ideas that we were able to take and implement into our own program. And probably, obviously, the biggest change was, as I've mentioned before, we started this program out as City of Raleigh Stormwater Quality Cost Share Program, and that a mouthful became the alliteration Raleigh Rainwater Rewards. And so it came at just a perfect time for the program. These improvements were implemented, and almost we suddenly had communication stakeholders helping out, which kind of is a great segue into this section here, the outreach efforts. Because at that point we're rebranding, and we were designated our own communication department liaison, and they have been supporting the outreach efforts. And almost overnight, the program grew leaps and bounds. And here's just a few of the initiatives that we move forward with after that report. Most of these, like I said, have roots in that UNC School of Government 2018 report. Our largest outreach effort to date was a public utilities billing insert. We actually had an insert reach, with the new, it's shown there on the right, which shows our new name, the Raleigh Rainwater Rewards name. And then it described the program briefly and different project types. 142,000 of these at least went out. And it changed the program overnight. You know, our phones and emails rang off the hook from pretty much March to December 2018. So that was a huge turn in the program's history. And then, you know, in addition to this, which reached out to mostly homeowners, we also sent out targeted postcard mailings to your institutional and your commercial properties. You know, we reached out to churches and schools and to property management companies who manage a lot of apartment complexes and multi-unit residential properties, and had some pretty good success. We also conducted a GSI tour for some Wake County school stakeholders, and we've implemented a customer service survey so that folks can provide feedback on their experience working with city staff and through the program's process. And we were able to take that advice and make informed changes to the program. You know, another thing, kind of going back to the website, with communications buy-in, we're able to just track everything from hits on our website to what's working and what's not. And we increased our website content in the meantime, and our hits have been up, you know, from 2,000 hits a year to well over 4,000 to 5,000 hits a year. You know, we still make sure we do a lot of public interface events, you know, and we're also getting a lot of interest from other communities, both locally, like New Hanover County, or I know Cary had a grant for a pilot program there for a short while. We're also getting a lot of interest from other states. Pennsylvania, a town in Pennsylvania reached out. In Florida, different towns in Florida have reached out. So, and it's not uncommon for the program to be mentioned in the media just randomly in a positive light. And so communities do reach out, inquiring about it and seeing what's involved in setting something like this up in their own community. And then lastly, we're in the process of taking some of our existing outreach material and making sure it's in Spanish as well. We want to be able to reach other groups throughout the community as we move forward. So kind of what we're doing these next couple months and years. So I'd say kind of during COVID, right before COVID, we did a big kind of a long overdue transfer from Excel spreadsheets to all of our Survey 123 ArcGIS online data sets. It's been great. We've been able to conduct reporting and find target areas for outreach just so much easier. We are really trying to focus more on commercial and multi-unit residential properties. We don't want to abandon our single-family home sites, but we also see a lot of value in these bigger projects, and we're trying to foster those relationships and are very proactive in our outreach efforts to try to facilitate projects on these property types. And then you also probably noticed there's Mitch Woodward with NC State University. He's at Raleigh Union Station there on that top left photo, doing a presentation or a video with our communications department on permeable pavers. And so we're aiming to have some project specific videos uploaded to the website. We have at least 2 on there now. There's also a link to a cistern video that we're working on, or that has been recently completed. Then we also want to incorporate educational signage in more of our projects. And so communications has also helped with that. We've developed some templates, and I'll show you a slide with what that looks like. And obviously we continue improving our website content. So you'll see here's the the temporary and yard sign, and then the permanent panel templates that are available for free to applicants to use on their project. You probably see several of these small temporary yard signs downtown. There's several rain gardens in Oakwood District that have these in their yard next to their rain garden. And then this is the same template that was used at the Raleigh Union Station green roof in the previous photo. So I just wanted to kind of end here today and show some good examples of projects that kind of embody what the program is about. Here is an impervious surface removal. You have the old tennis courts that are not in use by this community. This is all on HOA property for this community, and they wanted to remove it and make it into a recreation area, a vegetated recreation area, and it's mutually beneficial to the community and the city. We gain a quarter acre less impervious surface draining to a watershed, and then they avoid long-term maintenance costs of a tennis court, and they create an open space with multiple purposes, or to use for multiple purposes. So mutually beneficial project here, and one I like to point to. Another high visibility project is this cistern project in the old Days Inn downtown. It's now the Longleaf Inn. It's a total of 6 cisterns throughout this property. You have the 2 very high profile metal ones that you see here on the front, and then they actually have they have 4 additional kind of workhorses, I like to call them, along the back of the hotel, which I have a picture of, and it captures right around 8,000 gallons of water. So a lot of these are hidden kind of in plain sight, and just a good example in an urban setting when there's not a good footprint, but a lot of stormwater being generated. And then I also wanted to kind of end on this project. This is a rain garden / bioretention at William Peace University. It was just completed last year. It's right in the middle of their academic buildings, right in the center of campus. Heavy pedestrian traffic, high visibility. They have their own signage there, which was installed, and it treats almost 3/4 of an acre of runoff, and that's coming from pavers, from roof surfaces, and so this is just marries together, water quality benefit, outreach education, all the goals of the program, and aesthetics. It just shows that green stormwater infrastructure can be hidden right in plain sight, functioning, but also have aesthetics, and also educate at the same time. Another picture from a different angle. Just shows partnership with the community here, and just shows how we work with the property owners in Raleigh to reach that common goal to effectively manage stormwater. So that concludes my presentation. I'm more than happy to take any questions or respond to any criticism for the next few minutes.
Thank you so much, Justin, for that awesome presentation. It's a great program, and I think you thoroughly described how the process works and different projects that qualify for this. I'll give individuals a minute or two to type in their questions, because I know sometimes there is a lag with watching it live. While we're waiting for questions to come in, I had a couple questions of my own, just from listening. So it seems like the projects really range from $1,000 to really high dollar projects. Does this program have any maximum costs, or is it just whoever has an idea can apply and you just find out if it's approved or not?
Question. There is vetting, or I guess review of the project, and what we'll do for every application is we'll generate a cost effectiveness metric. And we'll couple together, or let me back up, that cost effectiveness metric is a function of project cost and impervious surface treated. So if a high cost project that treats very little is not an attractive project for the program, and that metric will be shown at time of review and may not pass or be approved. A low cost project that treats a lot of stormwater runoff is what we're after, and what will compare well to other projects that have been approved in the past. That's kind of the surface to it. So it's going to all boil down to that cost of effective metric. I mean, there isn't necessarily a ceiling. There is a But using that same metric, there is a cap using that same metric, and that is going to apply to those extremes that we talked about. It'll be your high cost, low pollutant removal, or it may be your super small projects with a moderate cost. It's just, it's, you have to be somewhere kind of in the middle of that spectrum. And that helps weed out projects that are overpriced or are really not getting any pollutant removal for the money invested.
That makes sense. It looks like we had one question came in. Someone asked, will these programs be extended to other cities in Wake County?
So we are, we're limited to Raleigh Rainwater Rewards. We're limited to Raleigh, but I know that the county has a somewhat similar program called CCAP. And it's not exactly like Rainwater Rewards. It has maybe slightly different goals, but it's very similar in the fact that it does support stormwater management practices on property. So if not in the city of Raleigh, I would look to see what your county may have.
Yes, you're right, Justin. And we'll have someone from the Wake County Soil and Water Conservation District presenting about the CCAP program on July 27th. So that's one of our talks that we're hosting as a part of this Lunch and Learn series. Just checking to see if any other questions came through. While I give individuals a couple more seconds, I also wanted to ask, I know you said the majority of the time people come to you for like an idea of a project, but does the City of Raleigh provide any services for like assessing a property? Say a homeowner knows they have some runoff issues or something going on, but they're not quite sure what type of project is best for them.
Staff will meet with folks. If they're interested in potentially moving forward the project, staff will set up a site meeting, and that site meeting will start at different places. Sometimes it will be complete, at the very beginning, brainstorm what would work on this property, cistern here, maybe a rain garden here to capture this downspout runoff. Other consults start when they already have engaged a designer or a contractor and they already have scope and estimate set up, and we're just pretty much confirming. And so any or all the above, really.
That's great. Thank you, Justin.
One thing to stay away from, I guess, or to caution against, we do get a lot of calls from off-site drainage or from pervious runoff or for flooding. And with us being a water quality program, we're going to be limited to the impervious surface runoff or the hardscape runoff that originates on that owner's property. So all of our projects are going to be tied to, at least on a single family home site, tied to driveway runoff or downspouts, generally speaking. So a lot of times our projects will mitigate where that nuisance flooding is occurring, maybe from some adjacent properties, but it will rarely solve it because, with this being water quality, that's going to be our focus. And then secondly, they're going to be sized to handle that first 1 inch of rain. A lot of times that nuisance flooding occurs after more than that first 1 inch of rain. And so once again, I go back, I always tell folks it'll mitigate, but probably will not solve your overall volume concern. But it will serve water quality purposes.
Okay. Let's see. Don't see any other questions. So I just have one last question. In regard to, this kind of goes back to the question that was asked earlier, if other cities offer this program. If a municipality or another town is interested in kind of starting a program like this, do you have any recommendations for them, kind of where to start or things to consider when looking into creating a program?
I would say I would start looking at that legal agreement. What this in defining goals, what the community wants to get out of it. So define the goals, what the city wants. If it's target areas to meet MS4 and PDS permit requirements, TMDL stuff, then have that as the main goal written into the policy, and then make sure your legal agreement gets the city and gets the owner what they each should define those deliverables well. And so, I would focus on one, the original goals, and make sure those goals are in the policy, and then really work on that legal agreement, because that is what is utilized to implement that project and to follow up on maintenance through the whole 5 to 10 year maintenance period.
Okay. Thank you.
And also, I'd say one other thing: link up with communications or somebody who has the ability to do some good outreach, because and then hold on, because once they get the word out there, you'll get a lot of interest.
That's a good point. Okay. Don't see any other questions, so I'll kind of wrap it up from here. Thank you again, Justin, for your informative presentation. And also thank you to everyone who attended today. If there are any questions that were not answered, or if you think of something afterwards, please feel free to email us. The email I put in the chat, but it's swcd@wakegov.com. I'll either try to answer it or I'll shoot it to Justin. And if it's something that it's better for him to answer. As a reminder, this Lunch and Learn series will continue every Tuesday for the months of June and July. However, we will be taking a break next Tuesday due to the 4th of July holiday. To see what topics will be covered in July, please visit wakegov.com/helplunch. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Bye.